Israel under pressure, tonight announcing plans to pull out of 2 West Bank towns, but so far ignoring President Bush's demand for a total withdrawal. So what happens now?
Here now, Dan Abrams.
Also tonight, a huge anti-American protest. More than 8,000 people take to the streets calling America the Great Satan. Well, it's not that it's happening that's so outrageous, but where? In Kuwait, the country we liberated from Iraq? I'll have some questions for a Kuwaiti government official about that. Up next, does this look familiar? An anti-American protest in an Arab country? Well, today it happened again, but where it happened made this one different and made some of us a little bit angry. When I tell you, you may be a little angry too. Remember our friends in Kuwait, the ones who welcomed U.S. troops to the region back in '91, the ones who celebrated after the U.S. troops liberated them after that Iraqi invasion, the ones who cheered the first George Bush? Well, things appear to have changed. The Associated Press reports that in Kuwait today, about 8,000 Kuwaitis and other Arabs protested the United States' support of Israel. The crowd, huge by Kuwaiti standards, chanted anti-Israel and even anti-U.S. slogans, including "America is the Great Satan." Well, they must have made some deal with the devil. Joining me now to gauge what is going on in the small but influential Gulf state is the Director of Information for the Kuwaiti Embassy, Dr.Ghabra. Mr. Ghabra, thanks for coming on the program. Appreciate it. I think you can understand why when other Americans hear that Kuwaitis are chanting "America is the Great Satan," it gets our blood boiling.
That's an interesting point. However, let me say that demonstrations that are anti-Israeli in principle and less anti-American, by the way. This demonstration was anti-Israeli, anti-Sharon. You've had similar demonstrations in England and in Europe and in Austria and in Sydney and everywhere in the world.
But Kuwait is different. But see, I understand the anti-Israel.
Why is Kuwait different?
I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why.
Abrams, I mean, why should it be different?
I'll tell you why.
Human rights?
You asked me a question. I'll tell you why. I understand the anti-Israel position. Kuwaitis can feel however they want about Israel. That's their prerogative. That's their right. I almost feel like the Kuwaitis have an obligation, a moral obligation, to not go around screaming America is the Great Satan, no matter what they think about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
Let me put it this way. You can't really shut people's mouths. And in a country which is open, like Kuwait, you get a demonstration, 10,000 people. You can't tell me that 100 of them would not say whatever slogans they decide to say and shout and express themselves.
Reassure me.
But let me assure you.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you. Yeah, I was just going to ask you to reassure me.
The overwhelming majority of the demonstrators did not chant anti-American slogans. On the contrary, they would be calling on America and on President Bush to interfere in Palestine in the way America has interfered and stood for principles of human rights in support of the people of Kuwait in 1990-91.
Reassure me that the people of Kuwait still view the United States and the United States effort as nothing short of heroic, what happened in 1991. I mean, because I remember when we were talking about even the United States effort in Afghanistan, I had your ambassador on the program to defend the fact that there were protests against the U.S. effort in Afghanistan. Reassure me.
I would definitely, Kuwaitis look in appreciation and in a very unique way up to Americans and to American people for the position and for the efforts that they've done in 1990-91. However, this does not make it also equal in the sense that people could have differences of opinion, could have different points of views. Tony Blair was here a few days ago. He went back and he had differences in labor regarding certain policies today on the issue. So what's looked upon today is American leadership, and a leadership that stands for human rights, that stands for self-determination, that stands for the same ideals that America stood for all over.
I understand that's your take on the Israel-Palestinian conflict. I just want to make sure when it comes to the United States relationship with Kuwait that there isn't a sort of sense of, well, that was 10 years ago, this is today. It seems to me that when you're talking about liberating a country from another country that has invaded it, the memory should last longer than just 10 years. I guess that's the point I'm making.
I would say that point is well taken, and the memory would definitely last for a longer time. Remember, there is an agreement between Kuwait and the U.S. Remember that there are American forces in Kuwait, in protection of Kuwait, that Kuwaiti government has conducted all kinds of positive policies on the war of terrorism all along from September 11 on, that the position is clear. However, when the issue comes on the level of what Sharon is doing to the Palestinians...
Yeah, but see, there shouldn't be a however. That's the problem. You should be able to answer... No, you should be able to answer my question about American-Kuwaiti relationships without a however. There should be no however. It should end there. I understand your position about Israel.
Yes, but I would like to clarify. Yes, I know you understand, but I would like to make it clear.
But you shouldn't have to make it clear. We're talking about United States relationships with Kuwait. You shouldn't have to put a but or a however. There shouldn't be any caveat. It should be a support for the United States. And I'm not saying you have to agree with everything the United States does, but there shouldn't be people in the streets, at least masses, yelling, America is the great Satan. What you're telling me is that's a minority. I'm happy to hear it. But the issue of whether Kuwait supports or how they feel about the Israel situation, they can have their own opinion about that. I'm not challenging you on that. All I'm saying is when it comes to the United States, Kuwait should have a unique voice to say, you know what, give these guys a break. They saved us back in 1991. Anyway.
But you have to...
No but.
Look at it.
Mr. Ghabra, I got to wrap it up. I understand your point of view.
To wrap it up, you have to really give me time because you've really talked a lot of things that don't make sense to me.
What doesn't make sense?
I'll tell you what doesn't make sense. It's not possible to come and take a country in a context of any different point of view. People have differences of opinion.
Right.
People have their dignity in expressing these points of opinion. And what is happening today in the West Bank is something that touches people.
Well, I understand that, but I'm not asking you about the West Bank, sir.
I'm not saying
I'm asking you to focus on what is happening in the United States.
Well, I'm also answering your question.
No, you're not.
You're not. On the issues that I think are important.
All right. Anyway, sir, Mr. Ghabra, I appreciate
You're looking for allies. You have to have good allies in this context, and true friends who can speak their mind.
I guess my point is we shouldn't have to be looking for allies when it comes to Kuwait.
We are allies, but you need strong allies and reliable allies, not people who fool you.
Understood. Mr. Ghabra,
please.
Thank you very much for coming on the program. You are a wonderful spokesperson for your country, and I appreciate you coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.